Story 1. Missing Silverware. I lived in our house for almost 30 years before we constructed a new dwelling on the same property. In our old house, built in the late 1800s, shortly after we moved in, we noticed our spoons started disappearing. I thought perhaps our 9-year-old daughter was either taking them outside for one of her projects, or maybe even just taking them to school with her. We ended up buying a cheap, non-matching set of spoons, just to have something to use every day for eating purposes. It was that bad. That mystery has finally been solved. When we were dismantling the old house, I frequently saw a middle-aged lady in the driveway snapping pictures. I finally went up to see her and asked why she was so interested in our old house. She said that she used to visit the house often when her grandparents lived there and wanted pictures for historic purposes. She then went on to say that her grandparents had a disabled son who had cerebral palsy. The son had died in that house. Mystery was definitely solved. He must have been the one taking the spoons. Meanwhile, at our new abode, we were bombarded with not only spoons of different patterns, but also forks and knives that we had never seen before. They just randomly pop up everywhere in the house. Could it be that same little boy spirit returning spoons that he's taken from previous owners of the old house? We may never know. Story 2. A Visit from Beyond. My father had lung cancer and was in hospice. He was not expected to live much longer, and being several states away, I had made plans to visit him before he passed. My brother, who lived in the same area, was visiting him almost daily and keeping me up to date. One night I had a very vivid dream, or so I thought it was a dream, that I woke up. My father was sitting at the end of my bed talking to me, telling me how proud he was of me and how I was living my life. When I woke up the next morning, I could remember the whole experience very clearly. I called my brother and asked if my father had passed away. He said no, that he was still hanging on, but doing no better. I thought it must have been a dream at that point, yet it still remained in my head very clearly and vividly. A few days later, my father did pass away, before I was able to fly out and see him. I still believe that his soul had left his body prior to him passing, and he had came to visit me, knowing that I would not be able to make it in time to see him. In some ways, I'm glad I never saw him dying, as the images I have of him were all when he was healthy and strong. A few years ago, I was working on a project in the garage, and I could not find a tool that I needed. My father had always been so proud of my mechanical abilities, and I said out loud, "Hey, Dad, could you help me find this tool I need?" I know it sounds weird, but that tool appeared on the shelf that I had looked over several times. I feel like he was with me in that moment and helped me by producing that tool. Thanks, Dad, for everything. Story 3. The Shaking Door. I was working in a retail framing shop. It was Sunday afternoon and business was slow. The store is set up with a retail showroom in the front, and the back half of the store was where we did the framing. There was a bathroom and the manager's office. This is a pretty laid-back work environment. On this particular Sunday, I was working along with 2 part-timers. One part-timer was allowed to bring in his portable TV to work so that he could watch the football game when he wasn't at the counter. It was a beautiful day, and the back door to the shop was propped open. The game was playing on the TV, and it was so close to quitting time. Some of the other employees had stopped in to hang out. The bathroom door is always wedged open with a little piece of wood, unless it's being used. There's a sink and 2 stalls. But we used the bathroom as if it was a single occupancy bathroom, one at a time. Anyway, I was standing outside of the wedged open bathroom door, next to someone else, when suddenly the door shook violently. It lasted a good 5 seconds, and then stopped just as abruptly as it began. I froze, and I stared at the door, and asked in astonishment, "Did you just see that?" The person next to me had not seen it. No one did. Just me. It was noisy, too. I couldn't believe that no one else had saw this, especially the person who was standing right next to me. After asking around, I learned that the place where the store was located had formerly been a biker bar. I went to the library and learned that someone had been murdered in that bathroom. At this point, my husband called me off the quest. He was afraid that there was an unhappy spirit, and someone expressed interest that it may try to manifest itself through that person. I felt that I'd learned enough, and nothing more has ever happened. It made me a believer, though. Someone or something was in control of that door. It was controlled shake and a controlled stop. Months later, a customer who claimed to have psychic abilities came into the store. I asked if they would go into the bathroom and see if they felt anything. They agreed and said that there was a cold area around the bathroom mirror. Whether they were a reliable source, I don't know. But I'm a firm believer in ghosts and in this building being haunted. Story 4. Reflections in the Mirror. My parents had left earlier to go pick up my birthday presents from my grandparents, leaving me home alone, sleeping. I woke up facing the big mirror on the wall in my room. The mirror was opposite of my doorway, and that opened into the hallway. I saw in the reflection the decorative lights in the hallway. They were on, and it appeared my dad was bending over, putting something in my room. I assumed they had just got home, and he was delivering my presents. My dog was staring straight at what I assumed was my dad. I know for sure I was awake. I went back to sleep. Sometime later, I woke up to my parents actually arriving home. And that's when I realized that what I saw was not my dad. So who or what was reflecting in the mirror? Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Bye.